Welcome back to Grounds Under Review. I'm your host, Hugh Fike. Thanks for joining us for another episode. Last episode, we covered a golf trip that my good friends Hunter Hobart and Ryan Colby took down to North Carolina, and then this year out to Idaho, which you would perceive as a golf trip state, but it was a lot of fun. Went to some coffee shops and hit some great golf courses out there. Go check out that episode. If you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe. It'll keep us motoring along here, making sure we're getting all this content out. Keep me motivated. If you have any questions, email groundsunderreview@gmail.com. I've already responded to one very intentional listener about a checklist of things that should be going on for fall lawn care. Thinking about putting together a list for summer and or for winter, spring, and summer as well. So if you like that, let me know. And as for today, we're joined by one of my long lost friends, Cameron Hamilton. Just very briefly, it's been a kind of a wild ride over the last probably year, I think, or so.
That's a fair way to put it.
Yeah, and I mean, you went through a congressional race. After probably 18 years or so, we got randomly reconnected. I think the last thing I said to you in high school was probably something like, see you later, and then didn't talk to you for 18 years, and then was reconnected randomly. You ended up in the same state that I ended up across the country. When I left in high school for college, when I went to George Mason University, I was having to explain to people at my high school where Virginia was. And it was like, I mean, you went through the same thing, I'm sure. It was like totally.
For those of you that don't know, Hugh and I have a deep history here. We grew up playing soccer together. So a lot of fun memories, a lot of great tournaments, a lot of just amazing trips. Rural California is not like what you think it is.
Yeah.
When you get outside of the cities, it's like parts of Oklahoma. It's God's country.
Yeah, I got a lot of wineries and tons of dairies out where we grew up in Sonoma County, out in California, and then randomly reconnected. But you ended up becoming a Navy SEAL, which was not something I would have pegged you as. Kind of departing the doors of Montgomery High School back in Sonoma County. You were too well dressed. Your hair was too perfect. You're too well put together to go be a Navy SEAL. But
some might say I was perfectly scripted for it.
Maybe just built in the lab. And so you became a Navy SEAL. You spent a bunch of times being a medic, out there. Where were you deployed?
So I did 4 deployments total, 2 in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, to other locations in support of the War on Terror, and then 2 in support of Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. So 2 combat deployments in Afghanistan, 2 deployments to other locations. Unique experience. Worked with some amazing people. I was stationed at SEAL Team 8 in Virginia Beach. Had a fantastic time as both an assault team leader as well as a platoon medic.
And then you got pulled up into SEAL Team 6?
So I actually I was able to augment some of our premier commands from our Tier 1 operators as they pull traditionally white-side SEALs up to support higher level functions. So I had the honor of deploying in support of them, doing some great work overseas. So really just a remarkable experience. And
people, when you think of like a SEAL medic, you think you're hanging around on the boat, just sort of waiting around, not getting your hands dirty. Oh, no. You were pulling the trigger. And
you're in the stack.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So our medic and operators. So we have support personnel, we have intel specialists, we have people that deal with radio reconnaissance, we have people that deal with medical care on the backside. People that deal with, command climate and control, vehicles, you name it. But within the platoon, we have subspecialties themselves. So I was an operator and a medic. The Navy SEALs used to have designations across the different MOSs in the Navy. In 2006, we became special operators. So I was a special operator with a medical designation. So actual Navy SEAL, platoon medic, great opportunities and experiences. Yeah, you're in the thick of it. You don't hang out in the back of the stack. You're in the middle of the stack, just like everyone else, running and gunning. Great experience, wonderful opportunity.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you for serving your country, doing so valiantly. So you settled, you and your family are in Orange, Virginia, recently completed a congressional race, and now kind of post-life after that, you've started a coffee company.
That's correct.
It's like one of my all-time, I think, life goals is to start a coffee company or do something in this space, but I've never actually ever thought about putting together a coffee company. How do you put together a coffee company?
So the first thing, it comes with passion. You have to be inspired by the product, and you have to believe in the product you put out there, whether you're making shirts, whether you're making coffee, whether you're making something in the IT realm, it doesn't matter. You have to believe in the product that you're selling. So there's always been a passion of mine. I've always loved coffee, plus the United States has a rich history of coffee.
Yeah.
But that being said, We also been blessed with being in Orange, Virginia, because there's local suppliers and people that we found that source these beans from amazing places across the world, just high quality, low pesticides. I mean, really, really good stuff, so that we have a great product to start with. And then the way in which we roast it, the way in which we configure the blends, it just came together really quickly. But it's always been a kind of a hobby or a passion of mine that we never really put into motion until, well, I ran for Congress. Did not prevail. I think I was a little too radical, a little too conservative. But nonetheless, we put the business together and we started launching it, and we've had great success.
Amazing.
A couple of businesses are going to be frontlining it, selling it for service as well as for retail. We've got an online shop now with onwardvalor.com/coffee. It's taken off really quickly. So, but it all starts with passion.
Amazing.
You got to believe in it.
Yeah, you can't just kind of create a coffee and not really care about it or drink it yourself, right? You gotta embrace it. My dad always talks about, he was in the Navy for a handful of years, stationed on a boat, Kitty Hawk and Oriskany, kind of two notorious and famous aircraft carriers. And he always talks about the coffee being flavored with jet fuel. It had a very distinct taste to it. Got out of the Navy, he kind of introduced me to like the finer craft of like Pete's Coffee, some of the more tailored blends. What was the coffee like deployed overseas? Was it the sludge that you see in sort of the Saving Private Ryan, coffee cup full of grounds?
Pretty much.
What was it like?
So you make a lot of time what's called cowboy coffee, which is where you take a mason jar or some kind of a container, you dump grinds in it, you throw hot water in it, you shake it, you let it sit for a minute, and then you pour it over some kind of an improvised filter. It actually works. So that's called cowboy coffee. Works very well. I will say, training with the Mexicans, they have amazing coffee. We got to go on their vessels, and every time it was always, what in the world is in these beans?
Amazing.
And go figure, given their climate where they grow it. So they had some of the best coffee I've ever experienced. I also got to travel to parts of Malawi, parts of Eastern, Africa, Somalia, you name it. I mean, I've been to 36 different countries across the world, trying all kinds of different coffee, Ethiopia, the Middle East, you name it, everywhere you can imagine. Each has their own flavor. The coffee in the Navy is not notorious for being very good. It is notorious for being very bitter and very strong. And that's what people want. They want that good reliability. And it definitely keeps you motile from your digestive system. So it keeps you pretty regular, which is great for a ship. But, as I got out of the Navy and as I explored more, and also my travels, I came to appreciate all the uniqueness of the different flavors. You find an appreciation of different beans, different roasts, and you really tailor in your taste buds, if you will. Yeah,
that's amazing. Well, one of the themes of this podcast is kind of local things in nature. So local golf courses, local nurseries for lawn care. Obviously going to be doing a huge coffee line, probably of all local shops that we have around here. Because, the DMV, the District of Maryland, Virginia has a pretty rich coffee culture. Lots of really good places. Actually, La Colombe, which is a type of coffee that I really like to have.
Yeah, they make great stuff.
They do. And the guy that started it actually had a show on the Travel Channel, which I was tuned to by my dad, called Dangerous Grounds. And so, and so he would source all these coffees from all over the places, but like would fly into these really dangerous random countries. Right. Go get a couple bags of this or that, get them onto a plane, get out of there.
It's really funny.
Maybe you didn't have the the sourcing coffee in like Malawi or wherever these random dangerous countries are, but seems like you've got kind of a good basis for what might be good.
The history of coffee is so unique because actually, again, it was discovered about 1,000 years ago. It had kind of become a novelty, especially in parts of Ethiopia and the Middle East. And ironically, the Ottomans would bring it with them when they would have conflicts in parts of that region in the Middle East, but also even in Persia, and then even west into parts of Eastern Europe. And so when the Austrians engaged with the Ottomans, there was a notorious after-action review that was written about by some officers about how they wanted to destroy the beans before the Austrians could get it because it was considered something so special. And in Islamic culture, obviously you're prohibited from consuming alcohol. So coffee became their choice. It became the staple of social settings. And the West in Europe, we became exposed to it after about the year 1500 or so, and it just kicked off like wildfire. And then the uniqueness of the American Revolution, again, this is all roasted and brewed right here in Orange, Virginia. Not only that, but just within a throw of Highway 20, Constitution Highway. You couldn't ask for anything more patriotic than that. And to go to American history, during the time of the Revolutionary War, John Adams actually had a letter that he wrote to his family about how he believed it was the moral obligation of every American to oppose drinking tea, and that it must be purged from our society, because that was a symbol of the crown, that was a symbol of a Tory, and that was just unfit
Getting
for a
taxed
patriot.
on it for no reason.
Exactly. Coffee was more scarce, but it was available. So coffee became, through cultural characteristics, this new American staple of, hey, if you're a true American patriot, you drink coffee, not tea. And it just kicked off like wildfire. And so East India Trading Company, many of those other kind of Dutch and British organizations, they shipped coffee all across the world and built their entire business behind tea, sugar, and coffee. Really remarkable.
Yeah. And now it's become much like, craft beer and craft wine,
Yep.
something that people are willing to spend, $6-7 on. Actually spent $6.50 on a nitro cold brew yesterday,
Yep.
and it was delightful. So I think you have these niche places that are popping up. But so you've got a coffee company. What's it called?
Onward Valor.
Onward Valor Coffee. Very patriotic. So tracks with your previous line of work. You got 5 blends here,
I do.
which I think I haven't not tried this. I think I'd probably be an outlaw blend guy because Doc Holliday is one of my favorite historical characters.
Is great.
And he's a kind of was a patriot back in the day. But talk us a little bit through kind of each one of them. I guess I can open it up here and smell. So we'll start with the Outlaw Blend.
Yeah.
You have a decaf, which we'll maybe mention not very much because I don't know who drinks decaf coffee, but
So smell it, take it away, and then smell it again.
yeah, kind of like wine. So Outlaw Blend. Tell us a little bit about this one.
So this is a concoction of several different beans. We've got beans from Malawi, from Brazil, from Colombia, and then we've also added just a touch of espresso to it.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
can smell
medium roast, so none of these are light roasts. The reason being is a lighter roast coffee has a higher acidity content. You really want to, if you don't have food or if you have an unsettled stomach, it can really put you back. So these are medium roasts, so it has a little bit of a bolder flavor, bolder aromatics, but they're roasted to be really smooth. Time and temperature. That's all about how to roast beans. So the Outlaw Blend is enough to give you that bold flavor, but it has just a touch of espresso to give you a little kick. So it's got a 10% espresso added to it, which is a heavier, darker bean that's also roasted under higher pressure.
Right.
So it should give you a lot more flavor, a lot more uniqueness and boldness that people traditionally want.
Actually, when you first said that, the first thing I can smell is kind of an espresso smell.
But you should be
Very
able to smell.
chocolatey.
Yep, but you should also have a little bit of a sweetness to it too.
Yeah.
So, and then the next one is Nobility Blend.
Nobility. This
And
seems
that
to
one's
be.
got a little bit of a little bit darker, but it's almost like a cigar.
Oh yeah.
After
yeah.
scent.
Tobacco kind of cigar smell. Yeah.
But it's a medium blend, so it's still very, very smooth. In fact, that's what we've got right here. We just put this on, so I'm going to give my friend over here a good pour.
Oh yeah.
Of this Nobility Blend coffee.
I started out drinking or very dark, kind of dark roasts, and have migrated to kind of the medium blends. I think sometimes you can get into like the floral aspects of it, and I really like the sort of the finer kind of softer notes. But cheers.
Yeah, cheers, my friend.
Let's see what we got. So this is Nobility Blend.
This is Nobility.
Yeah, that's what I would expect. It to taste like very. Kind of traditional, very traditional coffee taste.
Smooth.
Yeah, someone that's not a big coffee drinker would drink it. We're tracking into winter here, so I'm more of a seasonal guy. I don't know what kind of coffee guy you are, but when it's hot outside, like I can stomach a hot cup of coffee.
Yeah.
But I just kind of have migrated to being a cold brew guy,
Yeah.
like nitro cold brews. I think they're kind of the part of
smooth.
Yeah, very smooth. But that's the kind of part of coffee I think has progressed over the last handful of years. The hot coffee is obviously the blends are a little bit different, but
The good thing about these, it doesn't have that real bitter aftertaste.
it doesn't actually at all.
It's
Yeah,
very,
nice.
very smooth. And so the Nobility is actually the one that we use a lot of times with our iced coffee. We've served it at key events.
I can
and
see
it's
that being
just,
good.
it's smooth. It's
Yeah.
really good. It's reliable, consistent. The next one we got is the We the People Brew. This was actually the first one that we came out with.
Nice.
So the idea was if you wanted to start a revolution, this was the blend for you. Heavy Costa Rican bean with a 20% espresso. It's got the highest caffeine content of all the beans that we have. It's still a smooth brewed coffee. It's really exceptional. So
Interesting.
the We the People Brew, again, kind of going back in a montage to and paying homage to our our fallen patriots before, those that brewed and those that fought and carried the banner of freedom. So we have that in a 12-ounce bag. We also have them in sample sizes. And then lastly, the Guardian blend. So the Guardian blend is going to be darker than most of your blends.
Well, it's in this like really rich, dark black bag.
Exactly. So. But you're going to really like that flavor. Heavy Malawian bean from East Africa. But
do you know much about the difference in types of bean? Like you say Malawi.
So these are all Arabica beans.
Okay, Arabica. Yeah, nice. Yep. And talk to so you blend it. Is this something you're talking to the roaster about, or how are you guys coming up with the different blends?
So part of it was an experiment. We started adding different flavors, adding different beans, grinding them together, because every bean has different oils and they kind of play off one another. So we were really trying to find the ones that really had a complementary feature. Most of your beans, again, 60 to 70% of the world consumes Arabica coffee beans. In fact, those were the beans that were first brought to the United States and eventually brought out to parts of Central and South America and even in Brazil. It's almost all predominantly Arabica beans. So because it's a more stable plant, it produces those good green fruit, the coffee plant. And then from there, you pull them, extract them, actually roast them, heat them. Again, time and temperature. It's all about exposure of that bean. The more you roast it, so the higher the temperature, and the longer you roast it for, produces a darker flavor, which then gets a very distinct and unique coffee scent. The lighter you roast it, actually, the higher the caffeine content. However, the higher the acidity, and a lot of times it can be very volatile for the gut.
Yeah.
And so we chose to go with medium and dark roast, but we also have the shadow blend. As far as how we designed each of the blends, it was just an experiment. We sort of looked at certain beans and how they play with each other. The Malawian beans, for example, complement really well with Brazilian beans. The flavors are very synergistic. So we've made some of those combinations through give and take here or there. And then the shadow blend, that's our decaf. Again, we also do sell them in biodegradable bags because we've had some people ask about that too. But the shadow blend is a solid decaf if you want to consume coffee socially, but not necessarily get that rich caffeine.
Yeah. It's funny you say that time and pressure and heat, all these things going to play into it. There's a coffee shop near me up in Hyattsville, and they've got a roastery right there actually in the coffee shop. And so you can it's kind of like, when you go to Chevy's in the early days and the people are making tortillas right in front of you, you get to kind of see the process, but he's got this graph. He's got this like little roastery and he's got this graph and he's got the knob for I think it's probably propane he did doing to roast it. And he's watching this line because there's like the perfect track line for when to dump the beans, cut the heat and all this stuff. And he's watching the bar graph kind of creep up and he's getting it close. And then all of a sudden he like kills the heat, opens the door, dumps the beans out. It's kind of a big to do. So it's kind of fun to stand there and watch it. But yeah, that was curious to me because normally I think so many people are exposed to like over roasted beans and it changes the profile.
It does.
And the bitterness. It makes it oily. Like all these things that kind of lead to I think a less desirable or less enjoyable coffee taste.
There's a lot of brands that actually intentionally burn their beans because they want consistency. Like, for example, Starbucks is notorious for burning their coffee. They have some great blends, don't get me wrong, but a lot of their signature blends are very heavily roasted. In fact, roasted a little more than they should be because they want you to come in every single time. Same thing with Wawa. Wawa, the folks that use that and kind of go back and forth at gas stations, they traditionally have stuck with a more burned bean just because when people walk in, you've got every flavor of creamer you can imagine, and they want a consistent, reliable brew every single time. That's not my flavor. I prefer the subtleties and the nuances of the uniqueness of each bean and how they play off each other. But, at the end of the day, it's all about finding your style and then finding your source. And, what we've really gone through good pains to do is to make sure that where we source the beans from are from producers and suppliers that are really, really conscious about not only proper plant health, but also environmental health. And I say this as an ultra-conservative. I don't want my food sprayed with pesticides.
Yeah, right.
And coffee is actually one of the worst. So if you're noticing you have either a really heavily acidic flavor or just almost a chemical aftertaste, it's because you're getting a bean that's been sprayed multiple times with pesticides. They try to wash it. They try to put them in an acid bath. It doesn't pull it all off.
Yeah, it doesn't. And you can really tell. I mean, I think to your point that a lot of people walk into a coffee shop just wanting to expect the same experience every single time.
Right.
And look at things. You don't know what kind of taste you are or kind of what you care about when you look up at the board. So it's a little bit, can be intimidating, but Yeah, this tastes great. It's something that I definitely want to kind of work in. We're going camping this weekend, and we got the Nobility blend with us, so we'll report back on how it tastes from the campsite. So, well, thanks for joining us. I appreciate your service and your experience in fighting for the country and stepping up to do a big thing and running for Congress. So, you put yourself and your family through quite a bit of exposure. That's fair. It's never easy. So. Appreciate it, but thanks for joining us on this episode of Grounds in Review. We'll be back hopefully in a week or two with some other coffee episodes, and then we'll dive into kind of end of fall lawn care scene and then what it looks like in the winter and the spring. So appreciate you joining. Thanks for joining us on Grounds in Review.